What's up, guys? We're at Morazzo's Market, where we're gonna do big on a budget. And basically the rules are this: you can only spend 50 bucks for 7 days. It's gonna be 5 feeds per day, or 5 meals. One of those meals can be replaced by an animal supplement or meal replacement of my choice. And each meal is going to be around 45 grams of carbs, 45 grams of protein, and 15 grams of fat. And obviously it's a kind of a good even middle ground to kind of can adjust slightly up or down and kind of hit a wider array of the population, all right? So one thing to keep in mind when you're on a budget and you're trying to choose foods that are really specific to meet your goal. Now, is this gonna be something that's gonna be a wide variety of micronutrients and be the healthiest possible overall? Necessarily no. This is more to fit your goals as a strength athlete. So we're gonna be choosing the essentials, making sure that we get the proteins in, making sure we get the calories and the carbs in, and of course, making the best choices we can, the healthiest micronutrient dense wise that we can. So one thing to keep in mind when you do something like this is you can go on the internet now and check the ads to see what the local sales are, and the night before kind of tally up, see what's going on in the sales, see what they have, and see and pre-calculate what you need, all right? Now, one thing that you can do is what I did, is I kind of broke down roughly what I want the meals to be, what the sales are, figured out roughly how many ounces of meat per meal, ounces per day total, times by 7, and then I divide it up, and then to kind of get an idea of what I need to get exactly instead of trying to figure out in the grocery store, because that's going to be frustrating, and generally people will be like, all right, this is crazy, and then they end up spending too much. So you got to have a plan, and you got to kind of do it right. This takes a little time at home, and actually, it only took me about 5 minutes because I'm pretty familiar with food, and food's my life. So I'll explain that later exactly how I did it, all right? So we're gonna go in there and get started, and I'll show you how I do it. You go to the grocery store, you always choose your produce first, non-perishables. And as you're leaving, you choose things that expire, like egg whites, chicken, things like that. That way you're not walking on the store in line, spend an hour till you get home, and the food that's perishable sitting at room temperature for so long. I can't tell you how many clients I have had food sicknesses and food spoilage, or throwing up and having GI issues because of things like that. It's not that it happens often, and it probably won't, but I'm just gonna tell you everything today, even if it's as silly as it sounds. The ad special, $2.99 for 5 pounds of potatoes. Just make sure you go through your potatoes and you check to make sure you don't got any rotten ones in here. Sometimes the ones that are on sale are bought in bulk. When they buy them in bulk, sometimes some of them get a little spoiled or rotten, and if you get one that's a little moldy in there or rotten, you can kind of spread the other ones fast. This one's good. You can never go wrong with bananas. Bananas, high in potassium, calorically dense, super cheap. When I say calorically dense in comparison to other fruit, gram per gram. Not calorically dense like compared to like a blueberry muffin from Dunkin' or something. So we got olive oil here, extra virgin olive oil in glass. Always buy in glass. 250 mLs. There's 10 mLs per 2 teaspoons. We're doing 15 mLs per day for 7 days. So this is actually, we'll make it for the week. And obviously olive oil is important. It's got the polyphenols in it. It's anti-inflammatory, good source of monounsaturated fat. You can cook with it, it's versatile. It's a great oil. Obviously there's other good oils, but that's the oil we're choosing today because it's on sale and it's gonna fit our budget. Right here, enriched long grain rice. The reason I'm choosing this rice is particularly, I don't like brown rice. Not a lot of people do. Obviously, brown rice is arguably better on paper, but not by much, and we're not really using our rice for a source of fiber, so I'm not worried about it. We're using it for a source of calories. It's easily digestible and non-gas forming in the GI tract. So that's why we're choosing it today. And we're going to be focusing on our fiber from vegetables. And obviously, way better choice anyway. So like Tuna's great. It's a very inexpensive, I mean, relatively inexpensive. You can get $1 a can, chunk light over here in water. Always get the chunk light. Light has, it's less mercury than the albacore. And I mean, obviously they don't tell you this, but you're really not supposed to consume much more than 4 ounces of tuna a couple times per week. And obviously that varies on your body weight. And there's a genetic variance in how your body's ability to detoxify mercury. Some people detoxify it a lot, some people don't. In this, you have 20 grams of protein, and it's 99 cents. So actually, in reality, compared to chicken, $2 a pound of chicken, chicken's a way better deal, gram for gram, than tuna is. We're gonna pick up some whole grain quick oats. I prefer quick oats because they're easier to cook. I don't need to boil them. And I don't know why, I can't tell you why. I'm not gonna make up some weird stuff to tell you, but I think it digests better than the whole rolled oats, especially if people are repetitively eating oats in a day, they can feel distension. A lot of people don't realize that when you eat fiber or higher carbohydrates in the intestinal tract, water draws into the intestinal tract and it makes you feel bloated. Not necessarily getting you fat, it's just drawing water so your stomach can get distended. For some reason, I think that the quick oats or the 1 minute oats cook better and digest better and make me not feel as bloated. And it's only $3.79, so that's a good bang for your buck as far as calories, great source of fiber. So we're definitely gonna roll with this. Let's see what we got for peanut butter, it's cheap. I know I'm gonna kind of talk about a wide variety of peanut butter. So obviously you guys have the natural peanut butters, which generally doesn't have any hydrogenated oils in them, okay? But what they do use now is palm oil to emulsify the oil, which generally people argue that it can be very bad, it cannot be, but really the amount of palm oil they're adding is not really significant that you would find, say, like in a bar, candy bar, or so forth. So it's not the biggest deal, but if you really want the healthiest peanut butter that has the separation, where it just has peanuts and salt in it, and that's it, is the best way to go. However, like a lot of the new natural Skippies and stuff are the ones I just said that will have the palm oil that emulsifies it, and they do add a little bit of sugar. It's kind of still insignificant, and it's still obviously better than the original Skippy that has the trans fat, which is the hydrogenated oils that keeps it emulsified, and obviously all the added sugar. But peanut butter is obviously extremely calorically dense. It's a legume, so sometimes in excess it can cause gas, so that's why sometimes people tolerate almond butter better than peanut butter. So we're gonna go with some peanut butter, obviously for calories, inexpensive peanut butter. We got Peter Pan here, natural Peter Pan. Let's see if they're really telling the truth, if they really are natural. This one has palm oil, which is fine, added sugar. But I mean, we're talking 3 sugars. In comparison to natural peanut butter, 2 sugars. So I mean, you're really not adding much. So don't get too hung up on certain things as far as that goes, all right? But this is, we're gonna go with this. This is better bang for our buck here. We're not gonna get the most expensive chicken, but I'm gonna explain something if any individuals can afford stuff like this. We have Belle Evans organic chicken, all right? Now, there's obviously different brands of chicken that are organic. And really, in my opinion, when it comes to chicken, organic is not necessarily the way to go if you have the money. Air-chilled chicken is the way to go, okay? Belle Evans is an air-chilled brand. Air-chilled means it doesn't soak in a chlorine bath, okay? Where it retains water and the chlorine. If you ever notice when you look at the chicken, it'll say, might retain 3 or 2 to 5% retained water. Sometimes chickens look really plump and pumped up, and when you cook them, they kind of still sometimes taste like they're not cooked even though they are cooked, because some of them are injected with like chicken broth, but a lot of them, they soak in the chlorine bath, it kills the bacteria on the outside that absorbs into it. And we're really one of the only countries that's legal. So if you are to afford expensive chicken, don't necessarily just go right for organic chicken that's still soaked in chlorine water. Go for air-chilled chicken. It tastes so much better. And if you can't afford it, don't ever try it because you'll be dissatisfied with the other chicken that you're gonna buy. But we're gonna go with the regular chicken, the $2 a pound chicken. And we need to get, I already calculated it out, and this is something to keep in mind, is there's a thing called, what is called a yield. So like if you're gonna be like, oh, I need 10 pounds of chicken for the week, you don't go buy 10 pounds of chicken because by the time you trim it, cook it, you're gonna have less. So it's called a yield. You can go into USDA.com or you just Google chicken yield or yield chart, and it'll tell you the percent yield you get from certain meats. So you can calculate how much you need to purchase. So if you need 10 pounds of meat, say if you need, 8 pounds of meat cooked, and chicken has 87% yield on average, I like to do 85% and then making sure I have enough to purchase when you leave the store. That way you're not over purchasing or under purchasing. So we need 9 pounds raw, or you get close enough. We'll be slightly over weight-wise, hopefully not budget-wise. We'll have to make an adjustment if we need to. So here's our main source of meat for the week. Chicken breast, lean chicken breast. All right, so what I end up doing is I'm getting egg whites, okay, which is cholesterol-free, fat-free. Yeah, it's a little high in sodium per egg white, but that's not our concern. Our concern is reaching our goal and hitting our protein requirements without breaking the bank with some particular foods. And we're gonna go ahead and break down all this food later. And, whole eggs, we're gonna add the whole eggs in the morning because the choline and the egg yolk and the B12 and all the good nutrient stuff is in the yolk. There's a lot of research in other countries that study large population groups, not just in the US, that say that mortality morbidity rate increases if you consume more than 3 whole eggs a day over a lifetime, or 2 eggs, 1 egg. And generally the consensus is, some say 1 egg a day is fine, some say 2 eggs a day is fine, some say 3 eggs a day is fine, provided you have no risk factors. Now I can tell you from my own experience, whole eggs affect my cholesterol. Does it a lot? No. I'm a weird person. I have the opportunity to check my blood work inexpensively. So I've actually have eaten 6 whole eggs a day for 10 days, got my cholesterol checked, and then cut my whole eggs intake down to 1 whole egg day. And my LDLs did drop. So there was an effect, and that was the only change I made. Every individual is different. And if you're wondering and you're eating 10 whole eggs a day, just get your cholesterol checked. And if you're in check, don't worry about it. If you're not in check, maybe look at your diet to see what could be contributing to it. Maybe it's not the whole eggs, maybe it's eating too much saturated fat, or maybe it's not having enough fiber. But really look at it as an individual thing. Don't just make a claim or follow somebody's general broad recommendation and think it applies to everybody in the population. It's not how it works. Too many people want a black and white answer for things. It doesn't work that way. Be an individual, look at your own stuff, look at your own diet, look at your blood work, make a call. Are whole eggs great for you? Absolutely, especially pasture-raised eggs. The conventional eggs don't really have as much nutrients in the egg yolk as the pasture-raised eggs, but keep that in mind. All right, so we got veggies on sale, $1 per 10 ounces, which is great. And obviously we have a variety of vegetables here. We got sweet peas, mixed vegetables, corn, green beans. Corn doesn't count as a vegetable, guys, sorry. Not in my book. We're gonna choose broccoli and spinach because those have the most micronutrients. Just keep in mind, broccoli is a cruciferous vegetable. It's gas forming in the GI tract, along with Brussels sprouts, cauliflower. So if you're farting, it smells like broccoli or it smells foul, sulfurish, that's what it is. High in fiber, it's a great vegetable. Helps detoxify the body. It's very, very good. So we're gonna pick 4. We're gonna do 2 broccoli, 2 spinach. Spinach is great. Just gotta keep in mind, sometimes chopped spinach can be hard to digest for some. You just wanna keep some of these things in mind. But like I said, guys, I'm just trying to teach you as much as I can with everything I've learned. All right, we're gonna go check out and see what the deal is. I don't think we're gonna have enough for hot sauce. So, like again, the night before I looked at the ad, figured out what I need for 7 days for the meals, okay? Got a rough estimate of what I need to purchase raw weights for chicken and so forth, all right? And I did get a couple extra things that are not on here. They're gonna give me a ballpark. I didn't add it up like an Excel spreadsheet, which I easily could have. I couldn't access everything on the store and prices online to be able to add it up. Sometimes you can with the Stop and Shop Peapod and things like that, but I couldn't today, nor do I have a calculator. So as I'm bringing this out, I'm going to start with my priorities first, as it goes through the belt and keep the things that are not priority on back. Because we like to assume that at home we have some sort of condiments or something at home, or spices that we've already accumulated. Break the bank. We definitely need the oats. We definitely need the vegetables, although I know many bodybuilder guys don't like vegetables, so I just take my vitamins. So we're definitely gonna do the eggs. We're definitely gonna do the rice. Definitely the potatoes. Bananas are cheap. We need the peanut butter. We need the oil. We don't necessarily need the egg whites, because you got whole eggs, peanut butter, oats, which are all can add up to a decent amount of protein for breakfast. So we're gonna stop there, see what the deal is. Nope, no, we're good. All right, guys, we did it. We're gonna go home and cook all these meals and break them apart, show my prep and prepare it, and see how I formulate this meals in the diet plan for 50 bucks for 7 days. We're actually under 48, 46. If they had that $1.19 hot sauce still in stock, we would have made out with hot sauce. And it would have been an easy, perfect $50. All right, let's go check it out. All right, today we did big on a budget at Marazzo's market, and what I did was I checked the ad and the flyer to see what's on sale. We had 50 bucks to spend, and we have to develop a meal plan for 7 days. And in that 7 days per day, we have 5 feeds, 5 meals. One of those meals is going to be a supplement, and which would be animal meal, and that's not included in the 50. We already previously had that, so it really covers the 4 solid meals per day for 50 bucks for 7 days. The calories I calculated, or the macro breakdown, roughly 45 grams of carbs, 45 grams of protein, and 15 grams of fat per meal for those 4 meals, which coincidentally ends up being pretty much the same thing as animal meal. It's a good kind of mid-ground calories for most men at that point in time, for a good starting point. So in that case, it pretty much covers all females. So obviously females will be able to get away with obviously purchasing more or greater variety, and obviously eating less calories. But you can see how I developed it, put it together, and obviously we're going to cook it for you and see. So obviously, you know, when developing this program, I really focused on prioritizing what I needed for that strength athlete. So obviously protein, getting enough carbohydrates, getting enough fats was essential. So it's not like I could choose avocados and things that are extremely micronutrient dense, they're a little more costly. I had to prioritize and choose the best options I could with the money I had. So we did chicken breast. We ended up getting enough chicken breast. I think we actually might have a little extra for the week, and we're gonna cook and prepare that. We got our olive oil for our monounsaturated fats, healthy fats, and the anti-inflammatory effects of the polyphenols in them. We did long grain white rice, and then we have our potatoes, a big bag of potatoes. We got broccoli, we got spinach, and I chose the spinach and the broccoli for the vegetables because it's the most micronutrient dense vegetables there was available that was on sale. We got our whole eggs, and whole eggs are our nutrient dense yolks for our choline or B12, among other nutrients. We got a couple of things, egg whites here to kind of fill in that protein that might be missing for breakfast in the morning to match that 45 grams. And then we got peanut butter. Peanut butter is a pretty good source of fat, and it was really difficult to find a peanut butter that's relatively inexpensive. It's good for our budget. It doesn't have the hydrogenated oils in it. Obviously the cheapest ones had hydrogenated oils, and that's one you really want to stay away from. So I chose that one. And we got bananas because bananas are very calorically dense, good source of potassium, and so inexpensive. We got our oats, quick oats for our fiber content, and for breakfast, obviously very healthy for you. And we're gonna throw together these meals, but really a lot of times eating on a budget and formulating your meals is really just kind of the know-how, and you gotta put the effort in. So we're gonna cook the chicken, and we're gonna put a lid on it. We have a lid, which is key to cooking chicken and not making it so dry. Baking it is not the way to go. I know many of you have recipes where baking does work, and that's fine, to each his own. But this, in the last 17 years of me preparing chicken every day, this has become the gold standard of efficiency, speed, taste, and preventing dryness. And of course, you need a fast read thermometer and cooked internal temperature of 165. That way you're cooking it to kill salmonella, just enough, not cooking it to kill everything. and including the taste and the flavor, okay? So a lot of times people just end up cooking it, and 3 days later they're like, oh, I can't eat this is gross. And they gotta like load it with condiments and stuff to do so. The other thing you gotta do is make sure you cook the chicken breast, you slice the chicken breast evenly and thin, okay? You can't just take the big breast and cut it right down the center, because obviously one side's thicker than the other. So I recommend is, well, first off, trimming the fat off. So I like to cut it right down the center. So you have the thinner side breasts and the thicker side. You cut these directly in half. Don't cut your hands. That's probably not the safest way to cut it. And use a thermometer. Use a pan like this. And the lid, which is super key. See, one fatter side, one thinner side. We'll cook the thin side, the thicker sides we cut in half together, and then we'll cook those together. So everything's gonna be cooked more evenly. That way you're not taking like half the breasts off at a time. The bottom line is people be like, oh, I don't have time for that. I'm like, well, if you don't have time for it, then don't do it. But and then don't reach your goal. But the bottom line is, if you want something and you're trying to achieve your goal, you gotta make time to do it. And if you don't make time to do it and eating dry chicken, then don't complain about it. Check on the rice real quick. We're boiling. We're putting the rice on right now. I'm just gonna add a touch of salt for a little flavor. I am gonna add just like maybe a teaspoon of olive oil, just to make sure it doesn't get all sticky and clumpy. I recommend a rice cooker if you got one. Checking the potatoes. We are multitasking today. And then you gotta go a little bit further. And like, honestly, this is what I recommend. Like, when you are cooking and you're trying to be time efficient, make sure you're doing multiple things at once that you can work with. Best pan ever. I use this particular pan to cook practically everything with. Fish, chicken, eggs, egg whites, even vegetables. But the only problem is sometimes vegetables destroy pans, because you know, sometimes you end up cooking them a little bit too higher heat. And what ends up happening is, like, for whatever reason, the skin of the vegetable, when the vegetables end up like damaging the non-stick portion of the pan. So I like to not do that. Put the lid on. And I don't season the chicken, believe it or not. When I cook it, I like to season it after, because sometimes you cook a batch of chicken and it's like, say, 8 pounds cooked. And then you get halfway through the week and you're like, oh, I'm sick of this barbecue flavor or whatever flavor you end up using, and you're like, just got to eat it up. So sometimes I might like to change that flavor that day. So I like to add the spice after, or the condiment after, whatever you end up using. So we're gonna let that cook until the top of the chicken is a little white, and then I will flip it, and then I'll let it cook for maybe 3 more minutes, and then I'll check with a thermometer to see where we're at temperature-wise, and then make the call. Obviously use a clean plate. Put one clean plate on one side, raw chicken on the other. All right, so the chicken's finished, potatoes are finished, oatmeal's done, rice is done. Now we're gonna throw these meals together in the proper portions. Pull out our broccoli. Spinach and broccoli, they're the most nutrient-dense vegetables that we had, so that's what we got. So we got our rice, we got our egg meal here. Sometimes I'll do is you take the pan, a little spray, put the spinach, egg whites, and stir it up, and then put the whole egg. That way you get a little spinach in the little vegetables in the eggs in the morning, which is totally fine. This looks very sad and boring without mushrooms and spinach, but that's a breakfast. We'll add some pepper to that after. We'll move this meal 1 over here. We'll grab meal 2. And we're gonna have a lot of rice. We're gonna have quite a bit of rice left over for the week. That's for sure. 160 grams of rice of weight, is about 45 grams of carbs, and I measure everything. You can use a cup, but sometimes like you get people that use cups, right? And their cup version will be different than somebody else's. I had a client as of recent be like, oh, this is totally plenty of food, you know? And I'm like, oh, do me a favor, why don't you measure the cup of rice you're using? And it was like 240 grams, he was packing it in there. So he was eating way more than he was supposed to be eating. That being said, a lot of the times if you're consistent, even though you're measuring it wrong, it doesn't matter because you're basing your changes and your progression off consistency of what you're doing. So, I mean, in retrospect to this individual who's doing carb cycling, it did matter because then his high days were too high and low days were too low. And then he said there wasn't much variance between the two, but 1 cup and 1/3 cup, there is a variance, but he didn't see it because he was packing the one so tight. We're gonna do chicken. I like to peel it up. And then that way when I put the oil on it or spices, that it can be like thoroughly immersed and add more flavor instead of everything's drizzling off, or like, you know, like when say if the chicken's like cool and it's not warm, things don't stick to it as well. So when you put the spice on it, it's like bounce off and rolls off your plate. All right, guys, so here it is. Big on a budget, $50 for 7 days, 4 solid meals, 1 supplement meal replacement. The $50 does not include this, includes these meals. So we're gonna go the breakdown of it, and I'm just gonna kind of explain the macro breakdown. I don't count calories, I count the macros. So I kind of figure out if an average person needs a certain amount of protein, carbs, and fats. On average, I know kind of generally what men need. So I picked 45 grams of protein per meal, 45 grams of carbs, 15 grams of fat. So we're gonna roll with those numbers, and obviously that's a good middle ground for adjustments for below or adjustments above, because you can always add more potatoes and rice, because that's one thing that we will have more left over. So here we go. So this meal ended up being a little less protein than the rest by about 10 grams, okay? 10, 15 grams. So we compensated by adding more to the chicken meals, okay? And we'll still have enough chicken for the end of the week. You just gotta make sure that you're very careful when you do the trimmings to trim just the fat and not waste too much chicken. So here we have the 1-minute quick oats with natural peanut butter and a banana. So it's 15 grams of carbs from banana, 30 grams of carbs from oats, and I don't count the carbohydrates that come from peanut butter. 2 tablespoons of peanut butter, so that's 8 grams of protein, the 16 grams of fat, and this one has actually more fat, and 5 grams from the egg, from the protein, so 20 grams of fat in the first meal. A little more fat in the beginning of the meal is good. The first of the day is good, so for a little bit glycemic control, so you don't get a dip in energy between meal 1 and 2. I find that a lot with my clients. I got 128 grams of egg whites here. It's 11 grams of protein per 100 grams of egg whites of weight. That's how I usually do it. It's just a little easier for me instead of doing the tablespoons. So that's meal 1. Meal 2, we got 45 grams of carbs from potato, a little bit of broccoli, and 50 grams of protein through chicken, which we could afford probably go with a little bit less since this is 33 grams. But you're splitting hairs at that point, guys. You know, so just a couple grams off here and there is not the biggest deal in the world. We could easily get away with just doing 45, 45, 45, because I'm not counting the protein that's in potato or broccoli, even though it's insignificant. I'm counting the complete sources for the chicken meals. And I did count the oatmeal, the peanut butter, and the eggs in this meal as 33 grams. We added the olive oil here. So 10 grams of added fat. You got about 5 grams of fat from the chicken. That's 15 grams of fat there. 220 grams of potato, which is 45 grams of carbs. We got a helping of spinach. We got our rice, 160 grams of rice cooked, which is about 45 grams of carbs. Same thing with the chicken here. Added 10 mLs or 10 grams of fat, 10 grams worth of oil, 15 grams total. And the same thing with this meal. So these meals are kind of evenly spread and broken down. And then we have our animal meal vanilla. I like the vanilla a lot, a little more than the chocolate, personal preference. And this one's gonna have about 50 grams, 45 grams of carbs, 47 to be exact, 45 grams of protein, and 14 grams of fat. So you're around there. And now again, guys, when you're making meals and you're kind of like following a progression program or wondering if you're eating too much or too little, numbers don't mean anything when you're following a progressive program, provided you're consistent. If you know what you're eating each day and you're following your macro breakdown, you assess your changes based on your body's response to what you're eating consistently over a period of time, whether it's 3 to 6 days. Assessing how you feel, how you train, your body weight, appetite, and so forth, and taking pictures to see if your body composition is changing or not. And then you make changes based on what you're doing. Don't follow something for 2 weeks and be like, oh, I wonder if I'm not eating enough. Let me do a different calculation to find out different numbers that I want to hear versus what you should be assessing per the individual. Make it individualized. Make changes based on what's happening with you and the consistent plan you're following. So that's big on a budget. Again, I had to make the best choices I could to meet this requirement for the food. And so here you go. If you guys have any questions or comments, please comment below. Stay tuned for the next video, which is huge in 100, where I have $100 to spend per week and obviously able to spend more money on some other foods, possibly bringing in some red meat, maybe some salmon, avocados, and other nutrient-dense foods. So stay tuned for that.